Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into exactly how the Wild West of fintech violently collided with traditional corporate reality, all over a single July 4th weekend. You know that whole move fast and break things era? Well, it's growing up fast, and we're looking at three massive stories that show what really happens when startup disruption meets real-world regulation and some seriously heavy financial stakes.
So while you were probably off the grid, grilling burgers, watching fireworks, or maybe, let's be honest, secretly checking your portfolio late at night, billions of dollars were quietly shifting. Three major players in the financial tech space experienced massive, pivotal changes. These weren't just your everyday software updates. We're talking massive cash windfalls and strict new rules being enforced, all signaling that the fintech industry is finally maturing and leaving its Wild West days behind for good.
So here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, Klarna's surprise billion-dollar windfall. Second, California cracking down on crypto. And third, LMND betting big on itself. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. Klarna's billion-dollar windfall. Let's kick things off with a massive legal victory against Google that completely caught the market off guard over the holiday weekend. Think about it. When a company buys another company, it's usually for the tech, the patents, or maybe the active user base, right? But what is the absolute best bonus feature you could possibly uncover in the fine print of an acquisition? Turns out it's a casual $1.97 billion payout. A Swedish court just ordered Alphabet's Google to pay this staggering amount to a comparison shopping site named PriceRunner, which, is owned by Klarna. Now, the original claim was actually for $8.3 billion, but even trimmed down, landing nearly $2 billion right in your lap is wild. To put that number into perspective, that payout is roughly equal to 25% of Klarna's entire market cap. Just incredible.
Now, the truly fascinating part here is just how long this all took to unfold. We're looking at a timeline stretching way back to 2008 when these Google antitrust violations originally started. By 2017, the EU found that Google had essentially rigged its own search results to favor Google's shopping over competitors. Fast forward to 2022, Klarna, a buy now, pay later company, acquires PriceRunner. And finally, in 2026, the Swedish court orders Google to pay up. Google, of course, says they're evaluating an appeal, which in big tech speak means, we might see this drag out until 2029. But basically, Klarna effectively inherited this massive grievance just by making a routine acquisition.
In the market, well, they reacted exactly as you'd expect, with Klarna shares popping over 7% on the news. For a company that's still proving out its profitability story, this is literally the corporate equivalent of finding cash in an old coat pocket. Except, the coat is worth $8 billion and the cash came straight from Mountain View. It really just goes to show you, sometimes your biggest payout isn't in your core business model, it's buried in the fine print of a shopping comparison acquisition that nobody was even paying attention to. Part 2. California regulates crypto. So, Klarna found a highly lucrative loophole, right? But what happens when the government steps in and writes a strict new rulebook just for you? Enter Coinbase.
Right on July 1st, California's new Digital Financial Assets Law, or DFAL, officially kicked in. This law demands that literally any business exchanging, storing, or transferring crypto in the state must hold a specific state license. Honestly, this brings massive DMV energy to the crypto space. It means absolutely no exceptions and definitely no more vibes-based compliance. If you want to operate, you've got to have the official paperwork.
Now, you might be thinking, it's just one state. With crypto's global reach, why can't Coinbase just ignore California? Well, California has 39.5 million residents. That is a massive market that absolutely no financial company can afford to just ignore or pull out of lightly.
And here's the real kicker for Coinbase. Morning consult data that Coinbase itself has cited, by the way, shows roughly 27% of adults in California own crypto. When you apply that 27% to nearly 40 million people, you quickly realize that a huge, undeniable slice of Coinbase's actual active user base is now sitting directly under this brand new, first-of-its-kind state-level regulatory regime.
This is pretty much the exact opposite of what the crypto industry wanted. Coinbase spent years actively lobbying for federal clarity. They wanted one single national rulebook to play by. Instead, they got a totally fragmented state-by-state patchwork. By pushing DFAL, California is essentially doing to crypto what it did to car emissions, setting an incredibly high, rigid standard in a market way too big to ignore, effectively forcing everyone else to fall in line. So rather than one clean rulebook, the industry is staring down the barrel of 50 different ones. And California just made that reality a whole lot heavier. All right, part 3, Lemonade bets on itself. Let's move from heavy state regulatory burdens to some real corporate underwriting risks with the insurtech company Lemonade.
For years, Lemonade has relied heavily on its reinsurance partners. Basically, they were paying other people to take on the bulk of the risk while they figured out if their fancy AI-driven underwriting actually worked in the real world. Well, the data is finally coming in and the numbers look solid. In Q1 2026, their revenue jumped 71% year-over-year to $258 million, and their net loss narrowed by 43% down to $35.8 million. Because these financials are looking up, Lemonade is making a major strategic pivot.
Check out their reinsurance cession. That's the percentage of risk and premium they hand off to those outside partners. The step down here is dramatic, guys. The previous year, they were handing off 55% of their risk. Last year, they dropped it to 20%. And on their latest July 1 renewal, they trimmed it all the way down to just 18%.
The big takeaway here, Lemonade finally trusts its own math. They are confident enough in their own AI models to keep a much bigger slice of the premium and the risk. It's a massive shift, graduating from just renting confidence from reinsurance partners to buying it outright. As the source perfectly framed it, it's a lot like finally taking your own name off your parents' car insurance and standing entirely on your own 2 feet. Summary: FinTech leaves the Wild West. Across all 3 of these holiday weekend stories, we are witnessing a fundamental, undeniable shift in the financial technology landscape.
These companies are absolutely growing up and leaving those Wild West days in the dust. Think about it. Klarna isn't just a shiny buy now, pay later app anymore. They're pulling in billion-dollar antitrust payouts through strategic acquisitions. Coinbase can't just run on good vibes. They are taking DMV-style state bureaucracy and massive compliance hurdles head-on in California. And Lemonade? They are stripping away their safety net, cutting their reinsurance down to 18%, and taking on real adult underwriting risk based strictly on their own algorithms.
Which leaves us with this final, critical thought to chew on. As the training wheels come off across the entire industry, and as these startups graduate into the very real complexities of massive lawsuits, intense state regulations, and total risk assumption, who's going to thrive? And perhaps more importantly, which fintech giant will be the first to stumble and crash under the weight of these new adult responsibilities? Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and definitely keep a close eye on how this maturing industry navigates the road ahead.